superhero! I'm a motherfucking super... Superhero films have been massive in the film industry for many years now. We've seen heroes battle villains on the silver screen time and time again. Unfortunately for those films, being constantly exposed to something means the audience is going to eventually start craving something new. That's why I was excited back when the film Suicide Squad came out. A film based on villains should change the game entirely. This is gonna be great! Unfortunately, this film failed to really stand out in the way a Suicide Squad film should. It fell into the trap of being a basic and ultimately forgettable superhero flick. Just like that, hopes for a good Suicide Squad adaptation died out. That was until in 2021, director of Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy films, James Gunn, tried his hand at the DC Universe and released, in my humble opinion, one of the greatest superhero films of all time, The Suicide Squad. This film was extremely well received, despite its box office failure. Thanks, COVID. What separates these films from me is how they approach the superhero genre in general. Suicide Squad tries to sneak by doing the bare minimum as a generic superhero film, while The Suicide Squad takes advantage of the uniqueness of the source material to subvert genre expectations and give the audience more emotional connection to the characters.
So that's it? What, we some kind of Suicide Squad?
Suicide Squad, as previously stated, is a film that is hurt by its refusal to break the mold. Sure, the protagonists are villains, but that doesn't end up changing a whole lot about the film. The Suicide Squad, as a concept, requires one thing. They need to feel like they're on a suicide mission. There needs to be some sense of danger, and that is where our first issue lies. In superhero films, you generally know who is making it to the end of the film. Spider-Man is never gonna die when his name is in the title of the movie. Okay, except that one time, but that doesn't count. Audiences have grown accustomed to the important big names surviving every time, especially pre-Infinity War. Because of this, having your Suicide Squad be filled with heavy hitters like Deadshot, Harley Quinn, Captain Boomerang, Katana, and Killer Croc immediately eliminates all that tension because we know those guys are making it. In fact, they do put in two relatively unknown characters in the squad, El Diablo and someone so irrelevant to the film, I won't bother to remember his name. And guess what? Those are the ones who die. The second issue lies in the fact that they're introduced way too strong. Obviously, we have seen superheroes portrayed as powerful from the get-go, and this is normal, but for a film that is supposed to get us to see our protagonist is running towards death, that might not be the best approach. The biggest criminal of this is Deadshot. Deadshot is treated as the main character of this film and is introduced kicking butt. First hitting an impossible bouncing shot on a target, and second implying that he would have killed Batman if his daughter didn't stop him. Now, I hear you asking, he's a supervillain. What's wrong with showing us what he can do? It's a good question. The way I see it, we don't want him to seem super yet. If he does, then it makes it harder and harder to care if he lives or not because we know he will. It takes away our emotional stakes. Fortunately, there is one film that rectified these mistakes and subverted its genre effectively.
We're all gonna die.
I hope so.
Oh, for sake.
As the film begins, we are met by our assumed main character, Savant. We follow him around and are introduced to a new squad. Right off the bat, things are set up to look like our typical superhero film. We have a protagonist with cool abilities, a cool team-up shot to establish the crew, some on-the-way banter, all of them dying painful and sudden deaths immediately. Wait, that's right. Within the first 13 minutes of the film, the squad we were just introduced to is almost completely wiped out. Even a big name like Captain Boomerang from the last film wasn't safe. This, my friends, is the movie point blank telling its audience that it doesn't care about what they expect. Anyone can die at any time, even our false protagonist. Now that is how you make your characters feel like they are on a suicide mission. We are then introduced to the real protagonist of this film, and these guys are complete nobodies. We have Bloodsport, Peacemaker, Ratcatcher 2, King Shark, Polka Dot Man, and Harley Quinn. Okay, yes, we all know Harley's surviving, but literally everyone else is on the chopping block. These guys are not household names. With the massacre that we just saw play out a minute ago, the audience is immediately given a reason to fear for these characters, because if those guys could die, so could they. Now let's take a look at how our protagonist for this film, Bloodsport, is introduced compared to how Deadshot was. While Deadshot was shown off as a cool guy like most superhero films, the first time we are properly introduced to Bloodsport, we see him on his hands and knees scraping gum off the prison floor. Then he is seen being a terrible father when his daughter comes to visit him. He hardly carries any of the same vibe that Deadshot did. This isn't someone we are being shown as super. Quite the opposite, actually. This is someone who is far more relatable and personal than Deadshot ever was, and it all comes down to how their introductions shaped our initial perceptions of them. Don't get me wrong, Bloodsport is shown to be cool later, but that comes after we get to see him be weak. Another thing about this team is, they kinda suck at this. They make mistakes and fight with each other, sometimes almost eating each other. This level of subversion is what makes this film so lovable and unique. That is the difference between these two films. So, if you want your story to stand out, don't be afraid to look at the genre you're in and see what rules you can break. Who knows? You might just make something the world remembers.